Hey everybody, Leah Klett here with the Christian Post, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Grammy award-winning singer-songwriter Jim Sonefeld from Hootie and the Blowfish. We are discussing his testimony, his faith, and his new Christmas EP. Your story is so fascinating to me because you dealt with addiction and before finding Jesus, and then your life just looked totally different after that. So, if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of briefly your testimony and your path to finding Jesus.
Well, I was raised in a Christian church in the Midwest, and uh, I really didn't have much of a patience or uh, desire for Bible teaching when I was a kid. I was a little deviant kid, and I was easily sidetracked with too much curiosity, and I was always just wanting to do my own thing. And so, when I at 18 moved from the Midwest to come south to attend a university and try and live out my soccer dream, I was done with church for the most part. I dabbled, I remembered my faith, but I wasn't interested or motivated individually to continue it. And so, whatever lessons stuck from my childhood were the lessons that stuck. I remembered some things, but then frustrations with other ideas. I felt like there was at one time a loving God in Jesus, but also this powerful, wrathful God that was intimidating and felt like a burden to me. So I was without any church. Like I said, I dabbled at best for years, and then as the band took off, I felt like, hey, life is good, right? I'm succeeding. I'm giving to charity. I'm starting a family. I felt like I was doing the right things that I was taught. But as time goes on, I end up moving from being a recreational drinker to a habitual drinker to a medicinal drinker to full blown alcoholism. And it's at this point that I'm really faced with, what am I doing? How do I even deal with this? And it took probably 4 to 5 years of very painful and negative, dark times to find an answer. And I sought help through the 12 step model, which was what a lot of alcoholics or even people with other hangups and hurts use as a way to spiritually get back on their feet. But it led me back into the Bible. And a friend had got me a book that was a what they call a biblical recovery book. So it had the 12 steps, but it also had the Bible, and it sewed together, I guess, the principles of both of them. And I realized they were much closer than I'd ever thought. I started learning to release, as a 40-year-old man, some of the hangups I had with the way religion was taught to me as a young kid, and started accepting that a lot of the principles that I pushed back on were actually very healthy for me. And I moved forward sort of in recovery and with the Bible, and eventually started turning my solo music towards wanting to sing about that as well. So I put out several albums of contemporary Christian message music, and really enjoyed that. And then found sort of a middle ground where I can go express myself musically, and also talk about recovery through different recovery groups, one of which is Celebrate Recovery, where they have combined the 12 step model and Jesus Christ as a savior, as a power. And I can both sing and speak and give testimony. And that seems like a really good expressive outlet for me. So I've gone through all sorts of things with the band, ups and downs. I've gone through ups and downs in life and had to face divorce, and got the blessing of remarriage. And now my wife and I, who have been married 16 years, are sort of out of the woods a little bit. Our kids, our youngest kids, are in college. So we're facing a new sort of stage or phase in life as well. But, staying close to the principles that Jesus taught and brought forward, and which happen to be most of the same ones that are in my recovery program, is where we're at today.
What has the response been like from fans of Hootie and the Blowfish who have kind of been with you since the 80s and then seeing this journey towards recovery and this journey really towards freedom?
Well, for a lot of people, it's hard to see from the outside. It's hard to even recognize as a fan per se, unless you read it in a tabloid or you know me personally. you might just think the band is going on as usual. And we had a period in 2008 where I had been clean and sober for a few years and really was on a good faith path. But we decided we needed to, as a band, go into a dormancy. We needed just to stop the massive touring and the making records and sort of regroup. And I went through my most profound period during that time where I was able to focus on being a better husband and father, and spent a lot more time in the Bible and with my recovery principles. That was a very fruitful time as well with my music. So it's the journey keeps going, and I think there are mountains and valleys certainly to be seen along the way. And sometimes you're not sure which you're in. You think you're in a great thing, but maybe it's unhealthy, or you think you're in a down moment, but it's actually a character building moment. So it's learning to recognize those going forward that has helped me the most.
Well, your music really does reflect your faith journey. I love that you talked about kind of dabbling in CCM because you have a new Christmas EP out. So how has your relationship with your faith evolved over the years, and how does it shape the songs that you're putting out now, especially these Christmas songs?
Well, when it comes to Christmas music, it's interesting because when I first wanted to start writing any Christmas songs, I was a little bit torn between, all right, what am I doing here? I want to celebrate the birth of a savior. But I grew up also in a cultural Christmas which is Christmas trees and lights and Santa and that whole idea. And so I've probably come up with a group of songs that tries to celebrate or accept both of those. And they're sometimes within the same song, sometimes completely separate ideas. The first single is about the birth of a savior specifically, and it really hones in on that moment in time. It's called Light of Joy, Gloria. And so I like to just be fully bold with a message like that. But there's another song, I think it's the third song on the EP, called Mama in the Kitchen. And it's the fact that growing up, one of my greatest and fondest memories as a child was spending time with my mom, who was a baker and a cook in the kitchen, and having that connection with her every Christmas was very meaningful going forward. So I think Christmas in that way is a fun idea to write about because you've got two pathways to be clear. There's the spiritual pathway, and there's also the cultural Christmas that many of us have grown to celebrate as well.
So as you're creating this album, I mean, you're reading the story of the Nativity, you're learning about the person of Jesus and his miraculous entrance into the world. How was your faith transformed, or was it influenced in any way?
Well, anytime I realize that I'm going to be putting down words and singing out melodies that the public are going to hear, I always want to make sure they're accurate,
Yeah.
also inspiring or perhaps even catchy. So I like stumbling upon themes that are maybe new themes. These are all original songs. I could have done, the typical songs. There are so many that exist that are fun and joyful in their own way. But I think my authentic experience, like any singer songwriter, is special and unique. And so I wanted to say something that was unique to me. So when I write about Light of Joy, Gloria, I want to make sure, and I co-wrote that with Martin Chalk, who had the famous song with Chris Tomlin called Adore, the Christmas tune. And David Spencer, who's had big hits in CCM as well. We help each other stay in line, so we know we're, I guess, theologically accurate. That's important, but also I think it's about sharing what it means to me. And so, Light of Joy, absolutely is. It's a light. It's goodness. It's positivity, and it's when you're talking about the birth of Jesus, uh, just the great beginning of something so amazing. So the songs end up they're teaching me. I mean, in some ways, songwriting is a teaching tool. I'm learning along the way. I want to be accurate. I want to inspire others, just as I've been inspired by others' Christmas music.
Yeah. Do you feel a sense of responsibility or calling to express your faith through your music, or how do you really kind of grapple with that?
But at some point, uh, when I'd had sort of a desert in between when Hootie and the Blowfish had made our last studio record and before I started putting out CCM music, I had a profound change, and I decided I really just wanted to sing and write about positive things, celebration of faith, celebration of transformation. I'd written a lot, even with Hootie, sure, about, love and romantic love and brokenheartedness and that whole journey. But as an older man, I felt like I really wanted to celebrate the positive side. So I really have only written songs that are celebration of Jesus, celebration of new life, rebirth. And so for me, that keeps me, that along with experiential music. Here's how my spiritual journey looks on me. So I write a lot about my recovery and having the gift of a recovery path and people to work with that have shown me a way. I think that it's very personal to me too. And is it a responsibility? No, I can sing about anything I want, but right now, and I think probably forever, it's going to be about the joy of transformation for me.
Jim, what encouragement do you want to give to people who might be struggling with addiction right now? I mean, mental illness is on the rise, suicide ideation is on the rise, and it can be particularly bad around Christmas time and around the holidays. So, what encouragement do you want to give to people who might be struggling?
Well, there are answers, first and foremost. Any questions and doubts, which can be many and heavy, there are answers, or I wouldn't be sitting here.
Mhm.
And it does require stepping out to ask. And maybe that's our greatest human failing is we don't want to have to ask or need someone's help, especially when it comes to mental health. I think that struggle is so personal, and I didn't want to need someone else, right? I was a 40-year-old man when I had to first sort of surrender. So know that there are people to talk to, they exist, and there are answers, but only you can take the step forward. And there's 12-step groups. There are churches that can lead you, if it's addiction, into recovery through counseling, and 12-step groups. Celebrate Recovery is a great example. But mainly it's just that there is hope. Don't give up, because there are many people that are surviving mental health crises and addiction. And like I said, I'm an example here that is, if I didn't get help, if I didn't ask one day for help, I wouldn't be sitting here. I believe that fully.
Yeah. So, Jim, what ultimately do you hope listeners take away from Light of Joy as we head into the Christmas season?
I mean, at this part of the year, the celebration is so great, and it's easy to get distracted. Obviously, the birth of Jesus is a wonderful thing to celebrate as a season, but there's also a lot of distractions too. And they're not all horrible distractions. I think the light of joy is also about the light of giving, the joy of giving. And that's what our cultural Christmas has often meant. We share gifts with one another. We do nice things for one another. We put up lights to bring light. So I think it's okay that there's both. I struggle with people who are hardlining and wanting to completely, I guess, discount the cultural Christmas and say, no, it's only about Jesus. Yeah, the reason for the season, the birth of Jesus. But there's a lot of cultural things that have happened, I think, that are fun, acceptable, and loving ways to also celebrate the sort of ho ho Christmas tree, tinsel Christmas, and they can come together. I celebrated as a child in a family that did both of them, and raising our children here, we did the same as well. So celebrate both. It's okay, but just remember the reason.